Hello, friends. Today we have an interview with David Kim. David Kim was a balance designer for StarCraft II, was the lead balance designer for Heart of the Swarm and Legacy of the Void, worked on Diablo for World of Warcraft, then worked under Tencent to run his own studio to create a new type of RTS called Battle Aces. That got cancelled, and now has started a new independently run studio called A Move Games, in which they once again are trying to create a fast, action-paced RTS. So we discussed pretty much everything from the early periods of StarCraft II, how we managed to roll into the profession in the first place as a game designer and game balancer, and we talk a little bit about Blizzard in the period from 2010 to pretty much 2020, his journey onto running his first real studio under Tencent. And then we talk a little bit about the future of RTS. We talk a little bit about the current PTR changes in StarCraft II. And the entire conversation lasts about 2 hours. So I hope you all enjoy it. All right, David, good to speak to you. My first question is going to be, which games did you play a lot growing up? And where did your love for RTS kind of come from?
Yeah, so I guess growing up, I played mostly RPG games and strategy games. I guess single player because like internet didn't exist back then. But for RTS specifically, I've played all the big RTSs of my time, right? Like Command and Conquer, Red Alert, Warcraft 2, things like that, right? But I liked them quite a bit, but my actual love came and I guess started from when PC rooms first came out. It was like well before like StarCraft II or Broodlord came out. There were Red Alert and Warcraft 2 that you could play multiplayer, like over LAN. Like that's why you go to a PC room to play over LAN kind of thing.
Did you
right?
live in Korea back then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in Korea. And then like just playing PvP RTS was like another level of fun, right? And then my mind was blown like yet again when Brood War came out, and now there's like BattleNet, so you can play with a way bigger like range of people, right? Like people from all around the world. So that was another. So it's kind of like if I imagine like if there were no like transportation, so I have to walk everywhere, and then like horses. Like you can ride horses, and then like cars come out. Like that's kind of the level of difference that I was kind of feeling when I was little, right? So I absolutely loved it, and ever since it's kind of been my favorite. Like PvP RTS especially has been my favorite thing, kind of thing, right?
Is this mainly because it was the first genre that was being played competitively like that? Or do you think there was also something in particular about the genre that really appealed to you?
Yeah, I do think so, but it's not all of it, right? Like, so for example, I loved World of Warcraft. Like outside of PvP RTS, World of Warcraft PvE specifically, not PvP, is kind of my favorite game of all time, kind of thing too, right? So it's I think the social part, the variety of experience, because in single player you can't really change up your experience if you play the single player game over and over. It's always the same kind of thing, right? But in multiplayer with other people involved, whether it's PvE or PvP, it does kind of bring a fresh experience to the game that you are sort of replaying or whatever, right? So I think that's what I really love. But even more specifically, the gameplay of PvP RTS is what I loved too on top of that. And that's why games like StarCraft 1 or StarCraft 2 are my favorite, like absolute favorite games of all time kind of thing, right? So I think it's a bit of both of these things kind of thing.
Okay, gotcha. Then when it comes to getting into game development, I guess is more of a job. What is your background there, and how did you roll into that? I scoured your LinkedIn and I saw that your first real job was in 2007 as a balancer for I think 4 games at the same time.
Yeah, so it's not same time or anything like that. So like my first job I think was actually before that. I think 2007 was when I came to Irvine and joined Blizzard, but like 1 or 2 years before that I joined Relic Entertainment. And it's kind of a, I guess, funny story that doesn't really happen these days, right? But what happened was after high school in Korea, I went to college in Vancouver, Canada, right? So I was and I lived there maybe around 7 years or so. So I went to college there. I went there a little bit before college for logistics reasons. and then went to college, and then worked at Relic, and then I left to come to Blizzard kind of thing, right? So what happened was I loved StarCraft 1 and Warcraft 3 so much so I was playing so much, and then every offline tournament that I could go to, like I attended every single one in Vancouver area, right? And then maybe it's different now, but back then, like no like Vancouver was not one of the hubs for the best RTS players or anything like that, right?
I still
So
think that
even though-
remains true to this day.
yeah, okay, yeah, it makes sense. So even though I'm not like a pro level player or anything like that, I managed to win or get second place in every single offline event that I went to, kind of thing, right? But in this specific tournament, it was like the best player that would like, so I would always get second place if this one specific person is at that tournament too, and then I would get first place if he wasn't, right?
Do you remember his nickname by any chance?
Yeah, Smuffed, and I think his name was Stephen King.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember. Yeah, very old school. I saw him on TV a couple times, kind of thing, when he went to become pro gamer in Korea, right? So it was time when he had left already. So I was thinking, oh, like this should be pretty fun, right? Because easy win or whatever, right? And sure enough, I went. It was an easy win because he was gone. Like, not because I'm so great, but because he was gone or whatever, right? I won that one, and then afterwards, one person came and talked to me, and he was like the team manager of the game balance team at Relic, and he offered me a job. So I was like, oh, I would love to, because I was kind of almost done with college at that point. So it was the perfect timing too. So both the timing and I guess the situation kind of worked out. So that's how I got my foot in the door, and it was super fun. And the reason why there's so many games there is because game balance was treated very differently at Relic. It was more like a team of balance testers, really, and we didn't actually make any tuning changes in the game ourselves or anything like that. We would give like suggestions to the development team. So it was more like a midway between, say, like a QA testing team, but more focused on balance, not on QA, and a balance designer that is a straight up designer on the dev team. So it was a midway between those two things, but I absolutely loved it. And that's when I decided, game design is what I want to commit to for life, kind of thing, for my career. Super fun experience.
Back then, did you, the QA part, was that mainly like finding bugs, or was there a lot of like kind of internal playing as like the high level players being more of the test dummies?
Yeah. So there was a separate QA team that is focused on QA. And then I was on the balance team, which is focused on, I guess not game balance, but like more focused on game balance testing rather than, I guess, balance design, right? So I wasn't making any changes, but I was able to see through, say, like I would make some suggestions. Some of those will get rejected, some of those, but made it into the game. So on kind of more of a sideline, I was able to see the effects of the changes that I wanted to do, even though I didn't actually have the, I guess, the job.
Not really the ownership over the change, I guess, as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then from there on out, because you worked on Company of Heroes, I think 2 different types of Company of Heroes, and Dawn of War for Relic, correct?
Yeah. So a couple Dawn of War 1 expansions, Company of Heroes, and the expansion for it, as well as some THQ games, because Relic was a part of like a bigger company, THQ, which I think it doesn't exist anymore, but some of those development teams asked for help too. So I worked on some of those too. Yeah.
Okay. And then in 2007, you joined Blizzard, and you became, I guess, like a junior game balance designer.
Yeah, that was exactly the position. It was called Associate Game Balance Designer. I think that is kind of a long title, but yeah, that's what I was. So I was like the entry level, lowest level, I guess, designer on the StarCraft II development team. And that was the first time I got to actually do, I guess, balance design or any game design, really, right? So I did things like I handled game balance as the main job. I made majority of the Blizzard made maps, I guess, from when I joined until the end, right? So like I joined 3 years before the launch of Wings of Liberty. But I remember they were telling me they were working on it for 2 years before I got there. The first year was more like building the tech or something like this. And then the second year was like everyone else got involved, like artists, designers, etc. Got full-time involved, and then they were building the game kind of thing, right? And then I worked for maybe 9 years total. I left when the full support of the project has ended. It was like 1 year after. The plan was always 1 year after Legacy of the Void ships, the full support for the game will come to an end. So, but it's not. And this is what I respect so much about Blizzard too, right? When a project is done, it's not done forever, right? Like at least the kind of the bare bones, minimal maintenance support will still continue forever until as long as the players are playing the game, right? And that's so cool. But I left when the full support has ended, kind of thing, right? So throughout this time, I handled game balance, majority of the maps, unit design, things like that. And I managed to, over the course of 9 years, I guess, get from the, I guess, most entry level to owning and being in charge of all of the PvP part of the StarCraft II game.
Yeah, I'd like to zoom on some of these parts a little more granular, perhaps, than maybe you can even remember, because it's, of course, been a very long time. But in 2007, when you joined initially, you said they already kind of had like the base tech. Were you kind of helping out with designing any of the units that were going in? From what I heard and what I've seen is that StarCraft II initially was kind of built upon Brood War. So people just started with, you guys just started with the Brood War stuff, and then whatever popped out, you just added in. Like, how was that process?
Yeah, I guess I can give some specific examples there. So just to be extra clear, when I joined, the state of the game was more like this, right? So Terran was the most complete, so most like finalized, least number of things that we can actually change with the race as a whole, kind of thing. Zerg was the least complete, and then Protoss was somewhere in between. That was kind of the general state of things when I joined. And then maybe some examples of, I guess, maybe I can give two examples here. One that can't be changed and one that was changed, kind of thing, right? So as I'm working as part of the unit design team too, I guess the one that I remember the most, because I was the most excited about it, and then I was feeling super confident about this one too, and it did turn out well. But curious on your thoughts too, right? Sure. So what happened was, at the time, there were lots of things I wanted to do differently, kind of thing, right? So, but the problem with, say, like Terran was, it was like so many things were done already, so not much could be changed. But what can be changed was the only thing that could be changed was if we can cut another or more Brood War units from StarCraft II Terran race to make room for a brand new unit, because there was a more hardline rule on how many units a race can have in Wings of Liberty, because we had to plan for more units being added in the next two expansions, kind of thing, right? So when I realized that's possible, like it didn't take me long to realize, like, I mean, medic should be cut, because, and my reason was quite straightforward, and maybe some people don't like this line of thought, but at least for me, especially at the time, and I still stick by it, was medic is not a full unit, so it's not a good designed unit. Like, it's like the healing is super important, but it's like medic as a unit, it's not a great unit design. It's actually a great ability design, kind of thing, right? So
the heal is good.
Yeah, right. And very unique to the Terran race and very important, right? But I guess what I'm saying is you can't just build the medic alone and do anything with it, right? And there are other units that are good design that are like that too, right? So if you have a caster unit that does a lot of really important support utility abilities, probably more than one, then that could be a good design unit, right? But for the medic, it was just the healing ability is what it is. It's not a unit really, right? So it felt like a great one to cut to make room for a new unit because of that, right? And then my next thought was, what if we put it on the dropship, the healing on the dropship kind of thing, right? And then because I'm in charge of the game balance, I could tune it such that you have to have the healing at all times if you're using like Marines, I guess, and Marauders in this case. So tuning will be similar to Brood War in that it is a requirement to build that healing unit. And then I was thinking, then you get transport as a bonus, right? Like you're not actually building transport for the sake of building transports. It's just you get it for free almost, right? Because you have to build the healing. Then now we can solve this other kind of goal that we've been chasing of like each race should have its very unique and very different from any other race type of thing, right? And already I was looking at like, it was already all there when I joined, things like planetary, sensor towers, things like that, right? So Terran was already a super defensive race. And then when I look at like Protoss, who plays more in like a ball of army, like the goal is like protect the Colossus and then the Colossus will kill every kind of vibe or whatever, right? So in order to differentiate from that, it felt very cool, at least in my head, of like, if you can drop all the time because you get it for free, then you have a very defensive race that harasses more so than focuses on big battle, like big ball of army battles kind of thing, right? So it felt to me like you're solving multiple problems with the same like one change kind of thing, right? So it's like not only have we solved the bad design unit problem, but also made room for a brand new unit of any type of any building that can come in, which was also rare. And then and then now like we're making something very unique that only the Terran has access to. So like three problems in one kind of thing, right? So that's what I was kind of maybe that's a good example of like something that was a good change that I was able to do.
How was that perceived in the team? Because I can imagine that if you're the new guy and the medic, in my mind, is a pretty iconic unit in Brood War already. Yeah. I assume that the people that designed the medic probably were still working there and probably felt a bit more of a connection to that unit than you did. And then Mr. Outsider works 2 years at Rally Game, shows up. Listen to this, guys. Like, how's that conversation?
Yeah, so I guess there's a lot of kind of funny things to that too, right? So at the core of it, like you would think most of the designers working on StarCraft II also worked on StarCraft I, right? But that was actually kind of not the case at all. Like it was quite the opposite of it across the board, really, right? So for example, right, the StarCraft design team specifically, I think outside of the one tech designer, if I remember right, nobody else came from StarCraft 1. Like everybody, the whole team was kind of new. And this was kind of the norm even, right? So at least from my point of view, I don't know how it was before I was there, and I don't know how it is now. But another example is when I joined the Diablo 4 team for the first time, I was like the fourth designer on a team because like the situation was everybody on the Diablo 3 team had to focus on the last major release. I think it was like Necromancer release or something like that, which I didn't work on. So what happened was designers will get started on Diablo 4 first, and then when they're done with the last thing, everyone else will come over kind of thing, right? So of those 4 people, not a single person worked on Diablo 3. And then when everybody else came over, it was something like the main dungeon designer was from Diablo 3. And that was kind of about it. So like, and then I guess in hindsight, it makes sense because keeping the exact same core team together to go on to the next game, this is really hard because everybody has their own needs. And then especially the timeline is like Diablo 3, if I remember right, I heard it took almost 10 years of development until launch, right? So a lot of people get kind of like, I don't want to work on Diablo anymore. I want to try like Overwatch or whatever it is, right? So because of all these reasons, like it wasn't a common thing, I don't think, that the same team comes and makes the other thing. Yeah, and I was one of the new people just like everybody else, right? But at the same time, why this is kind of an interesting question to me is because there was that reaction in like at first, right? Because like the conversation kind of went like, so my boss, Dustin Browder at the time, he was in charge of StarCraft design kind of thing, right? So he was my direct boss, and then he was in charge of all the design meetings kind of thing, right? When he asked me this question of like, oh, we're looking for this, right? I answered in like in the moment almost, right? Like I didn't even have to think about it for a few days and then he was both surprised, I think, from how fast I answered it to the same thing that which is like, but Terran has to have like Marine and Medic. That's like the iconic thing or whatever, right? But as I presented my idea, my thoughts on reasons why, he presented his counter reasons, etc. We talked about it and then together, and then we both kind of saw like, yeah, maybe it is something worth trying at least, right? And then when we tried it, I think we realized, and this is what was so great, I think, about Blizzard as a whole, as well as the StarCraft II team specifically, of nobody's really intentionally ever trying to make conclusions based off of like how it feels so bad to cut something like a medic or something like this, right? But instead, it's more like everything was very based upon kind of the reasons behind what anyone is saying, like open mind, and do what's best for the game, right? Not like etc. Like all these things, and by no means, like we made a lot of mistakes, right? We were learning as we go too, as a brand new team. Like game design or even game balance as a discipline was very new back then too, right? If you look like how many games of like that esport level competitive game balance type were there even, kind of thing, right? So we were learning as we go. So by no means I'm not saying we never made mistakes or anything weird like that, but just saying the ability for everyone to be in an environment where you could make mistakes, but you could also just discuss everything through. Nothing is like set in stone, where we keep an open mind, like things like this environment was such an awesome experience at Blizzard, kind of thing.
Okay, I like that. In general, that seems to really be the vibe. A lot of playtesting in Blizzard as well. I assume you guys played a lot as well internally?
For sure, yeah.
Were you kind of the king of the hill there?
Yeah, I guess I was generally highest ranked, generally won all the internal tournaments that happened, etc. So I think so, but not to be confused with like, so when the Wings of Liberty beta first came out, I did beat a lot of the top end names, but that's not because I'm so good, but like it's only because I'm good enough, so I could play at like whatever 200, 300 plus APM or whatever. So not pro level, but out like if you exclude all the pros, right, or all the former pros even, and then if you look at everyone else, then I was quite good, right? So I was that kind of skill level. So imagine that with like, I mean, I've been practicing and playing for 3 years before, say, like real pros. So of course I can beat the pros for a little while. So that was my kind of skill level, just to be clear, right?
Yeah.
But how the balance testing and all that went was, there was this strong desire, and I just went with it at first because I don't know any better at the time. But then the more time passed, I agreed with it more and more. But this desire of having not too many balance designers, but just part-time, I guess, form some and any way to be able to play test effectively and well too, right? So I think ever since the beginning, I always search for the best players, who are the most, I guess, who can play a most wide range of things. So it's the playing skill that matters, but also the ability to do what's right for the game matters too, right? So this is a requirement. And I would form the balanced team, I guess, right, of testers pulling from all parts of the company that are interested. So that's how the balanced team was always run from beginning to the end of when I left, kind of thing, right?
And it's kind of like a squad just from within Blizzard, and people from that were working on World of Warcraft. If they like playing RTS, you'd pull them in as well. And
yeah. So I would try them out. If it works out well, then he would be added, kind of thing. And then oftentimes they would have to leave too, right? Because like, say like a dude on the cinematics team that was on the team for a long time. Like he just got so swamped with work at some point. It's like, honestly, I just can't spare the time to help out anymore, right? Even though my manager says it's okay or whatever, right? Then he would exit. So it was a very fluid type of, kind of constantly changing type of balance team, kind of thing, right? Yeah.
I guess the cool thing there is that you get a lot of different viewpoints because you have such a strong rotation of players.
Yeah. For sure.
When you when you're going through the process of getting into the beta of StarCraft II, do you remember the general vibe in the team? Because in my mind, StarCraft II was, I think a lot of people were really excited for it. I think a lot of people were also kind of afraid for it. Back then I was in the Warcraft 3 scene, and I know a lot of people in Warcraft 3 kind of, there was a bit of a rivalry between Broodlord and Warcraft 3, and I didn't like the thought of having StarCraft 2 come and, kill my game. Did you guys realize that StarCraft 2 was going to be such a big thing, like such a phenomenon?
Oh yeah. So I think I wasn't alone in thinking that, but absolutely. And my reason was this, right? No matter how I look at it, StarCraft II was like such a massive step forward compared to any other RTS that existed at the time, right? So like for the gameplay, I guess the biggest things for me were the UX controls improvements that were done compared to previous RTS games, but not just game design, right? Even from an art point of view, it's like I had no idea an RTS can look that good, right? Cinematics point of view, it's like best, like not just RTS cinematics, but best game cinematics of all time, almost level of amazing. And there were like 4 pre-renders, which was unheard of. Like even WoW didn't release with that many.
What does that mean?
The pre-renders,
Yeah.
the highest quality, I guess, the intro and the ending. So like the Tychus being built as a marine, that's a pre-render.
Okay.
The siege tanks coming out to own the bombers and or like the zealot that's standing by itself, and then like from the sky, the warped. These kinds of like crazy high level, right? Like compared to any other game out of all genres in the world, really, right? And then when I look at the pathfinding and I test different things, it's like I've never experienced like this is on a different level of good, kind of mind-blowingly like better, right? Combat feel was another big one. It's like, I mean, like StarCraft II felt like the first RTS game where like, if I don't know anything, like my first game ever, just using anything, fighting with any unit against any unit, that felt amazing. And that's the first experience that I had, right? So across the board in so many different areas, it clearly felt like an awesome game, right? So yeah, I was very excited, hopeful, but I'm pretty sure I'm not alone. Like most of the developers must have felt this way too, kind of thing, right? Because it was so good. Maybe another example is I feel like even visually, RTS games that are coming out like now are having a tough time competing, and that's so crazy to think about, right? Like imagine like a PS5 like best graphics game coming out this year, right? And then try to think back at like 2010 when StarCraft first came out, right? There's no like visually there can't be a content, kind of thing, right? But in this specific game, it holds up so well, right?
Yeah.
So
Pretty much everything I think holds up very well, which is the crazy part. Like whenever you compare a new RTS that comes out, pretty much across, like I don't think any single new RTS has managed to really overtake StarCraft in almost any of these disciplines. I think it's really hard. Like game feel, just the way that it looks, the readability of the game is insane to me. Like when you compare it to, well, even like an Age of Empires 4 or Age of Empires 2, like it's so clear to me what's happening in StarCraft 2. Now, of course, I've played a lot, but yeah, it's to me it feels magical. So post launch, you get like this. Sorry.
I did have one more thought on that one.
Sure.
So like I completely agree, right? And this is why I think when there is a game like that, right? So there's StarCraft for RTS, there's like World of Warcraft for MMO, there's like LoL for MOBAs, etc. Like you have that pinnacle game or whatever, right? A lot of people try to one up it, like I want to make a game that one ups and beats that game, but we all know like that's the hardest task kind of thing, right? But for me, it's like it's cool, and StarCraft II, my favorite game of all time, best traditional RTS of that type. That's all cool, right? But for me, the question has always been, I think since the middle of Heart of the Swarm development, but couldn't there be another type of really fun to play RTS that really hits on the strategy of like real-time strategy? So like it's not called, the genre is not called real-time who has higher APM or who executes better or who's more effective and faster, etc. It's real-time strategy, right? So can there be a game that's as strong as StarCraft II in the real-time execution part? So things like readability, like all these things that you just said, right? But what if there was an RTS that's just as good, but adds a lot of the strategy back into the real-time strategy genre, right? And that's what I've been kind of most passionate about for, I guess, 10, 15 years now. And then that's what I'm still doing, I guess, at A-Move Games, etc. So I just wanted to point out, like, although it's awesome, but my thought has always been like, wouldn't it be great if there's another one where it's a real-time strategy, and then can't they both be awesome games in different ways, kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Which is very
it feels.
different from what any other developer really thinks within the RTS space, I think, right?
Yeah, it feels like a lot of people want to make StarCraft 2.5 and you end up with StarCraft 1.6, which because it's so difficult on any type of like non-crazy budget, and even on a very good budget, it's very difficult to create an RTS that
Yeah.
feels competitive with StarCraft 2. Um, when you guys have the release 2010, the game absolutely goes bananas. I've never had anything like this in my life. So I was in high school back then, and games, people were playing games, but it was mainly stuff like FIFA. Like maybe you're gonna have some level of like fighting games, like some Mario Kart maybe or something like that. But to have like a computer game be this popular and like people in my school playing it, I remember being like,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
it felt so sick, to have this shared hobby with people like in my
Yeah.
direct environment. To me, felt absolutely crazy, and it must have been really cool to be in the launch on that. In those early days, were you fully committed to still like doing the balance, or were you already working on Heart of the Swarm?
So I guess the gist of what I was doing for all of Wings of Liberty and up to Heart of the Swarm development, my main focus was game balance. So I believe I was either like normal level balance designer at that point, or maybe like senior balance. I don't remember specifically, but that was my focus still, right? But what happened around Heart of the Swarm development was there was this idea that the same development team will be making another game. And this never happened at Blizzard before. It was the first time kind of thing, right? And that game was Heroes of the Storm. So my boss at the time, Dustin, he left to go to work on Heroes of the Storm. So what he decided to do, which I think even in hindsight, I think it was a great decision, was he wanted to have me handle all the PvP part of the game design of StarCraft II from that point onwards. And then there was another designer, Jason Huck, who handled the PvE part of the game design. And it was also a kind of a different setup than most other teams, because it was the first time that one team was making two projects kind of thing, right? So there wasn't like a single designer in charge of the whole game for StarCraft 2, really, right? So it was like Dustin was maybe like sort of that, but at the same time he delegated so much. So he was very disconnected from that point onwards, so that he can focus on the next game kind of thing too, right? So it was this kind of interesting setup. So from that point onwards, I kind of performed the role of kind of the main designer for PvP, and my like maybe my title wasn't reflected until a little bit later, but that was when I kind of took over, and then until the when I left, that's what I was doing.
Do you remember your philosophy through Wings of Liberty? And I have two kind of main examples there. The first one being a Thor change you guys introduced, I think, somewhere in May 2011, if you recall, only 15 years ago. This was post a match in which Jinro beat MC on Scrap Station with a kind of a mass Thor. I think they still had the 250 millimeter scanner freaking blasting everything the Protoss had. And you guys jumped in really quickly and pretty much gutted the Thor in the matchup. And it has been gutted ever since then. We haven't really seen Mech make a comeback. And then I guess the Broodlord Infestor on the other hand, where a lot of people felt this is too strong, this is too oppressive. It was there for what felt like years, but I think if we look back at it, might have been like maybe 9 months or 12 months. Was there a change there in how you looked at balance and like how active you wanted to be? Like, what is the thought there?
Okay, so yeah, so I don't remember the specifics of the Thor one, but I do remember the reason why, right? But I think rather than going into the specifics of that one, I think it's easier to just say it, and more helpful to say it more at a high level, right? But I don't think I realized this in Wings of Liberty, obviously, because there was the swarm host problem in HOTS too, which is kind of the same core problem, and I'll explain why they're the same or whatever too, right? Oh, and then there's also the other thing was there's an even bigger core problem I didn't realize until like Dustin had already left. It was in the middle of Heart of the Swarm development, etc. So if you want to talk about that one too, we can. And that was, I think, the biggest problem and mistake I've made in all of StarCraft II development kind of thing, right? But this was pretty massive too, right? Like, and the reason why it was the way it was, like much later, like sometime in, I guess, Heart of the Swarm or later, I realized there's a core problem here kind of thing. But in Wings of Liberty, I didn't realize this, so it was more like reacting in the moment kind of thing. But the core issue is this, I think. In a game like StarCraft II, where so many variables are fixed, what ends up, so let me explain what I mean by so many variables are fixed. So from a player's point of view, you are only playing 3 matchups specifically, right? Because majority of players play 1 race. And within those 3 races, you have a lot of fixed things, like you have, your race has this number of units, but per matchup, the unit roster is actually much less than that total number, because there are clearly units that you can't use in a certain matchup.
Right.
Every race has that, right? So that's very fixed. And then even if you look at the maps, sure, there are multiple maps, but I learned the hard way whenever I tried to push the boundaries that a StarCraft II map can't, like, it needs to be quite fixed, even though there are multiple maps, right? So I'm talking about things like the choke point to the base has to be within a certain size. The distance to the natural has to be within a specific, very fixed window range, right? The choke point there has to be a certain range, different range. The third works like, so it's like this all across the board. There are so many restrictions and rules on what can be a StarCraft II map, right? So ultimately, what ends up happening, because so many variables are fixed, is there always ends up eventually being one, I guess, major or one kind of most common way that players can play, whether this is build order or units that you can build, the timings that you can attack or have to defend, etc. Per every matchup, each side, this kind of ends up happening, right? This is just how the game naturally is due to how it's built, right? So because of this, if that major strategy ends up being something where both players are never encouraged to fight and just sit back and build up to their end game composition. So like in this, I guess, case, if what you want to do is mass, like your end goal is mass Thors, then you're never fighting, right? Because it's like, I'm not going to send one Thor to harass, like how do I even do that? They move so slow, right? And then for the Broodlord Infestor, same thing. It's like, I just want, as long as I have this critical mass, I can't lose, right? And then on the other side, if I remember right, the Protoss who had to deal with it, they're thinking, oh, if I can vortex just the right amount of group, the one time, then that determines if I win or lose the game, kind of thing, right? So the problem with this is if you keep playing games like this, then it feels super repetitive, super dull, etc. Because it's like, I mean, of course, right? Because every single game I'm playing SimCity for whatever 15 minutes. There's one fight and the game ends. So if I play 10 games like this, it feels like I just played the exact same game. Even though the players that I'm playing are different, it feels very repetitive, right? But on the flip side, if you promote more action, each of the action points will have very varying degrees of wins and losses. So like, say something very simple, like I'm just dropping with 1 medevac at your base, right? At this timing. Even though I do this every single game, the same way, at the same timing even, the results will vary heavily. So sometimes my dropship will get sniped and then it's over, like I lost it or whatever. Other times I killed like so much to the point that the game has ended, I won, right? And everything in between. And more of these action moments you have throughout the whole game, more different that each of those games will feel, even though you're doing the exact same build order, exact same majority strategy that everyone else is doing. So this adds a lot of replayability, variety, like a lot more fun to a game like StarCraft II, right? So this is kind of the long kind of lesson that I learned, right? And then what's even more interesting to me from this point of view is that's kind of when I started wondering, like in the middle of Heart of the Swarm or something like this, after the Swarm host changes or whatever, I started wondering, but it is called strategy, right? Like real-time strategy, not like real-time who executes better and who fights these micro battles in these action moments better. So can there be another game that kind of thing, right? So like I was saying before, and then more specifically, that's why I've been so interested in increasing, say, like these fixed variables. So for example, I've been exploring deck building type of RTS for the longest time, and that's the reason for it. So like, if I can give a specific example relating back to one of the things that I said. So let's just say, like, look at any unit, right? Siege tank. If you have a map where you can protect all of your expansions with one choke point, because that's all there is in this one lane map, that would never work in StarCraft II because like you can't even solve it, because say like I introduce a new unit on whatever the Zerg so that they can hard counter the siege tank so that it solves that case, then what actually ends up happening, because every like so many of the variables are fixed, is now all that's doing is you can never build siege tanks in this matchup because I have this tool that I always bring to the game. And that also in turn means I never build this new unit either because nobody's ever building siege tanks and that's the role of the unit or whatever, right? But say like if you have a deck building RTS game, then you can totally do both of those because, so for example, and then I'm trying to take a big stab at the maps too, like really different and unique maps too. So imagine a scenario where you know as the player playing the game what the map pool is for this week, and it changes every single week. And on top of that, I am free to bring my own deck to the game, right? So like, say in this specific scenario, the maps are favoring the siege tanks straight up. I don't know why my camera is straight up because of the map pool, right? And then, oh, sorry, I'm a little losing track.
All right.
This, if I just cover it up, it usually fixes it. Yeah, so imagine this scenario where the map pool is heavily favoring the siege tank, right? But because it's a deck building game, it's not so simple as like I just bring in the siege tank and I win all the games, right? Because it's like, but there exists this hard counter to the siege tank. Everybody knows that a lot of players might be bringing this. So some players will be bringing the siege tank to try to win that way. Some other group of players will be trying to bring the counter to the siege tank and not the siege tank to try to win that way. And other people are thinking even more deeper than that of like, oh, I know that people are bringing siege tanks because of the map pool, and then they're going to bring counters. So I'm going to try to counter that unit instead of trying to counter. So like there's so many more kind of potentials kind of thing, right?
Yeah, more evolving metagame in that way.
Yeah, right?
Sure.
So this has been what I've been kind of wondering of like, I don't know how long it's going to take. Like maybe it's the next one that we make, maybe it's not, etc. But wouldn't it be so cool, even from a gamer's point of view, if I can play a real-time strategy game where the strategy matters just as much as the execution? That sounds like pretty awesome, right? So like that's where like I guess my interest has been for so many years, like I mentioned before too. Yeah.
And that kind of comes from, that main realization comes midway through Heart of the Swarm development. So that's 2012, I guess 2013 is the release of Heart of the Swarm already. So
yeah,
that kind of happens in that time period?
Yeah, and I could maybe give some examples on why that happened that way too, right? So so maybe this is a good example. Like, you know how there is that one kind of fixed like majority way that you're supposed to play a matchup, right?
Sure.
That exists per matchup.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like very rarely, someone, and then at least in my memory, usually like a non-super top-end, like maybe non-Korean player of that race will come up with something so brilliant strategically, right? And it changes the game for that matchup kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? And these moments will happen from time to time. And what was such a shame to me was whenever this happens, it's usually like that person that's so brilliant strategically gets no benefit.
No payoff.
Yeah, no payoff, right? And everyone else, like the best Koreans or whatever, the fastest, most efficient, these guys just take it and then master, and then they win all the tournaments or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, I mean, but it's called it is supposed to be a strategy game where the strategy is important too. So why can't that player that's so amazing at coming up with something so awesome get some benefits, get a lot of the benefits too, right? And this is kind of where I started having this big itch, and it kept growing and growing or whatever of like, if there was another game, like StarCraft II is super fun, right? Like my favorite game of all time. But what if there is a different game where the execution matters equally to the strategy too, so that both the players who are really good at the execution can be successful, as well as the players who are really good at the strategy. And this is what I'm saying of like, if the variables keep changing week to week, say with like a really different map rotation or something like this, right? Then maybe we can get there, because it's like, I mean, by the time the best execution player has figured out like, oh, that's what you've been doing all of last week.
It's gone already.
This week, yeah, it's gone. Yeah, right? Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I've spoken about this before, but I like the way that... Are you familiar with Hearthstone Battlegrounds?
Oh yeah, one of my favorite games, other favorite games of all time. I'm still playing
Lots of favorite games. All of them Blizzard.
Oh yeah, usually like I've been such a... so I almost describe myself as like, I feel like I'm more of a Blizzard gamer than a gamer even, right?
Yeah.
It's like all my favorite, like even Diablo kind of thing, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one, every time I copy and paste and show someone, so like someone might say like, "Oh, I love Hearthstone Battlegrounds," and then I would copy paste my time played from in game to them, and they'd be like, "Oh, I don't love it that much." Kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm very familiar.
Yeah.
With it. Yeah.
I think one of the things that is really cool there, for the people that don't know, is that you basically have a couple of like seasonally rotating... I almost want to call them like events. So you have like an anomaly that is there, or you have the trinkets, and they're like time warps, and there's stuff that just keeps being added, new little mechanics, and then you don't even have to add that many new mechanics, but the fact that they rotate them and they put them in different compositions gives you infinite kind of variables in which the game feels very fresh each and every season, and the seasons feel like they come quite quick. I don't know if they do 2 months or a month and a half, but it feels like whenever I haven't played for like 3 weeks, I already missed 2 new seasons. And I really like that, the fact that it's so new, and the top players there, mechanically are quite decent, especially for the high APM compositions, but also you have to be really smart in order to figure out the stuff. And lower level players can figure it out as well, which I think is, it's a very cool mechanic.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's the main reason I've been playing so long and I still play it too, kind of thing. But maybe at a high level, my thought is this, right? Like if there is strategy versus like one end is strategy and the other end is like real-time execution capabilities, then I feel like something like a StarCraft II lives very close to this front. And then something like a Hearthstone Battlegrounds lives very close to this opposite front, right? And both are very fun in their own ways, like 2 of my favorite games of all time fun, right? But my question is, can there be an RTS specifically that pushes that bar more towards this side? So like, it's not that execution doesn't matter. Like clearly in an RTS, like I'm making an RTS, so execution matters. But what's kind of missing, I guess, for me in something like a Hearthstone Battlegrounds is I kind of wish there were some ways around someone who memorized all the answers properly for the season, etc. Too, right? So it's like. So I would say kind of the opposite of like, I kind of wish like there was something a little bit more on the real-time side.
You want to be the spreadsheet nerds as well.
Yeah. And that's kind of where my biggest passion has been for so many years,
and that comes from the kind of the understanding of that, like the Infestor Broodlord endpoint just being, I guess, faulty in a way.
So there's problems, and clearly this was a massive problem, massive mistake. It took too long to solve, like etc. Right? But it comes from the realization that replayability is really important, but there are some restrictions that can't be changed. So like, if I, for example, in Legacy of the Void or something, made all these changes that I've been exploring for the past 5+ years in StarCraft II, it would not be StarCraft II. That would be one of the most offensive things to people who love playing StarCraft II, kind of thing, right? So the reason why I had this itch that kept growing is because I know I can't do this on StarCraft II, because then it would not be StarCraft II, and it would not be right by the players who love it, kind of thing, right? But what if I am able to in the future? So for example, I got approval towards the end of my time on StarCraft II team to prototype kind of the next RTS could be for about 6 months, right? So I had a group of maybe few designers total, including myself, just designers. We made a prototype kind of thing, right?
Where is this in the timeline? Is that 2016-ish?
So it was maybe around 6 months before I left. So part of the reason why I pitched in the first place And why they approved it in the second place and why I left the team in the third place was because StarCraft was done, right? Not like done, but like, Blizzard definition of done. And there was no more RTS left to do after this exploration. That's why I left to the Diablo 4 team kind of thing, right? But I never imagined, I guess, that there would not be so like there was StarCraft 1, and then there was Warcraft 2, and then there was StarCraft 2. So I just naturally assumed or Warcraft 3, and then StarCraft 2. So naturally assumed next one has to be Warcraft 4. And Warcraft 4 is a great game to try some of this because Warcraft 2 to Warcraft 3 was such a massive departure in the core gameplay loop. It's almost expected that 4 is going to be even more different too, right? So that's like the perfect game for it. And then after that, we can come back to StarCraft 3, which is a more similar type of StarCraft experience kind of thing, right? But I never knew that. But now I know why. The reasoning makes complete sense. After the strategy-focused people, the decision makers at the company, the execs at the company that made decision on canceling the prototype, not doing RTS in the next whatever X years in favor of these, like they gave such good and detailed explanations to me. I understood why exactly. And then that's why I left to the...
Could you share those, or is that not possible?
Well, I guess I could. It's not like... I don't think any of those execs are there now, right? Yeah. Yeah, so like, just generally speaking, what happened was I really wanted to try some of this ever since like Heart of the Swarm, right? So naturally, I'm going to try to go for it. And at the time, up to the prototype stage, the dev teams decide what to do, not the company as a whole, right? I don't know how it is now, but at the time, that's what it was. So they gave me approval to work part-time on the prototype. So I used the StarCraft II editor, engine, etc. I asked for one, I guess, tech designer to help with the implementation, and one designer. He was the I guess, the other core designer for multiplayer all throughout. Whenever I took over, kind of thing, right? Aaron is his name. He makes indie games now because he wants to do his own thing now. Okay. Yeah, so like a team of 3 or so, we explored some of the like UX, UI, etc. improvements, and then what happened was, it was also around the time that other games were kind of wrapping up, trying to look for new things to do. So like it was a super competitive, like what game is going to be made next type of environment. And then like I think mobile was getting really big. Interest for mobile within Blizzard was getting really big too. So there was a lot of different, I guess, pitches or prototypes or whatever coming from the whole company kind of thing, right? So for me, I was hoping to get to that pitch stage where we can actually properly do the pitch using the prototype kind of thing, right? But never got there before it got canceled. But the reason why it got canceled was because the more strategy-focused individuals, both on, so like Dustin was one of the kind of decision makers group or whatever, right? Like some others like that have more experience with strategy or strategy-related games, etc. But each of these guys, they all came to like my desk, and then we showed them the prototype, we played it together, etc. Right? But the TLDR was like, I was super impressed actually. Like even though it was canceled, I didn't have any like sort of like, oh that's bad or anything like that kind of feeling, because not only did they give like super in-depth reasons why they disagree, but also they like a lot of individuals, they went through like each and every project that they want to approve kind of thing. So like projects I haven't even heard about kind of thing, and pitches I haven't even heard about, like specific reasons on why this is what's right for the company, etc. So I felt very like, yeah, like it's canceled, and maybe I don't agree with some details, but the whole reasoning and logical thought process makes sense to me. So it's okay. So it's not going to happen in the next whatever. So like maybe after all of these 5 that are getting approved gets made and then does well in whatever, then maybe we can talk about RTS. That was my kind of like solid conclusion kind of thing. So I didn't have any like regrets or anything like that. It was a pretty amazing experience. Yeah. Okay.
Understood. I'm sorry to be jumping around in time so much. I really do want to cover a little bit of like Heart of the Swarm as well. And yeah, I have so many questions. It's very fun because back then, to me, the first 4 years of Blizzard, or my experience with StarCraft II, felt like it was very difficult to get any type of direct communication with anyone at Blizzard.
Oh, I see.
And a lot of the indirect communication, I think specifically towards you, might have been quite rough to receive on your end. I was kind of that, like becoming like actually really famous. I think like probably the most famous game or balance designer that has ever lived in that period of Wings of Liberty, early Heart of the Swarm. I remember back then there was a dude on Twitter who was an English teacher living in Korea. He was called David Kim. And his pinned tweet was, "I am not the balance designer. Please stop flaming me." It's like,
yeah. Oh, but so this is funny to think about, but this is actually at the core of how I was able to realize the biggest problem that I think existed in StarCraft II that I helped create the mistake kind of thing quite heavily too, right? So like you were saying, if I were to kind of summarize it in how I viewed it, maybe double check with what you remember, that hate or that whatever, the negativity, like all this stuff kept growing and growing all throughout Wings of Liberty. And then it really peaked, I think, at some point, because I remember like looking at everything as a whole. And then I remember thinking things like, I mean, if I just go to Reddit, like 90+% are negativity towards like me, the game being bad, like devs never listen. Same with like Battle.net forums, same with Team Liquid, etc. And also, I don't know if you remember, but SC2 dead game meme was like the biggest. Yeah, right? Like DAED.
yeah, that DED game was
right?
it was huge. In 2011, 2012, it was already going around.
Yeah. And this made me realize the biggest mistake that I've been making, this biggest mistake maybe the whole team has been making, etc. Right? And this is kind of a really memorable thing to me, because I did work quite many years to kind of fix this problem. And by the time I left, I do think it was a lot more, I guess, productive discussion. And you'll never get rid of negativity. Like, this is impossible on any game if the game is popular enough and played enough, kind of thing, right? But what happened was one day I had this realization, right? Because up to this point, we've always been working under this thought of we are the experts at making this game, and we know best, and players will complain, which is, there's some truth to that. Like there are players who will just always complain no matter what, but we overgeneralized it too much, kind of thing, to all players, which was a massive mistake. And also, maybe I can give some other examples of how the atmosphere was, right? And the reasoning makes sense. So like, I'm not trying to like say anything bad about it, because like I made the mistake just the same as everyone else, right? But like, if you remember, if you look back at some of the biggest, I guess, memes from Blizzard, right? It's things like you don't know what you like. You think you want, you know what you want, but you don't. Like we know. Like so you can kind of get at the same core of what type of atmosphere it was at the old Blizzard or whatever, right? So it was more like this, right? Like so the problem with this is nobody is perfect, and like I was saying earlier, we are also learning as we go too, right? Like we weren't so amazing either, kind of thing, right? It was our first time doing some of these things too, etc. So what happened is when this kind of realization hit me, I went to Dustin, and it was after the time he had left for Heroes of the Storm, but he was always there for me for like mentorship, etc.
For my point of reference, he left for Heroes of the Storm in 2013. Is that correct?
Oh, I don't know it was sometime around either during development of Heart of the Swarm or after. Okay. And it wasn't like an abrupt translation. It was more like handing over little by little for a period of time, and then it was fully off, kind of thing, right? Yeah. But he was always there for me if I needed some help or guidance or run something by, etc. And this felt like, I mean, it's one of those times where like I shouldn't just decide this by myself. I should at least get a second opinion, kind of thing, right? So I went to him, and then I told him something like, I'm gonna give you two extreme options, and you can only pick one or the other. And I'm just doing this so that we can save a lot of time and just get to the end. You'll realize exactly why when you make your answer, why I'm even doing this or whatever. So we can cut through all the wasted time or whatever, right? He's like, okay, right? So I gave him like option one is we know from the data and everything that we're looking at, that we have access to, that we never share with the public, right? Because we don't need to, which is also wrong, but that everything looks perfect, but the problem is the players playing our game think it's really bad, right? That's option one.
You're talking about balance number specifically, right?
In this example, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then option two is the opposite of that. It's like, I mean, like when we look at anything and everything, all the data says like the game balance is bad, right? Like worse than it can ever be, right? Worse than it has ever been. But on the flip side, everybody playing the game, they just think everything is best and this is the best balanced game ever that they've ever played, right? And then he's like, option two, right? And then I could kind of see in his eyes of like, he just had this realization too now, right? Kind of thing, right? So like we were both, it's kind of like a, oh, holy shit, right? Kind of moment. And then, so I told him something like, I don't know what the solution is, but I do think we've been making a massive mistake. And like, I strongly feel this, and it sounds like you feel this now too, or whatever, right? And he said, yes, right? So I'm like, okay, so I'll try my best to try to fix this problem because it's so massive. And like no promises though, right? Or how long it's going to take or whatever, because it's such a massive problem that we've created. But I'll try my best or whatever. And he's like, oh, cool. Like you'll have my full support, like go for it kind of thing. Right. Which was very awesome. And it kind of speaks to, sure, the old Blizzard, like who doesn't have problems or blind spots, etc. Right. But this, I think this example speaks to, sure, we did have a big problem that we've created, but also speaks towards like, once we have the realization, it's not about like ego or anything weird like that. It's just really about doing what the best thing is for the game kind of thing. And that was like together what was so great overall about Blizzard kind of thing, right? Because like having experienced many different teams and many different companies, etc., it could have been like, you can't admit that because like I don't want you to kind of like ego based. Yeah. But there was nothing like that, which is so awesome too, right? But with that said, though, the solution was quite simple, or simpler than I expected. Because I've solved this type of problem before at an individual scale, because there were individuals at Blizzard that were very like upset, like being very negative, being very toxic, etc. And
about StarCraft II.
Yeah. So like in the StarCraft company mailing list, like specific individuals will be known for like, oh, that guy's super toxic. Like if he ever applies to our team, like this kind of atmosphere, right? Because we're all humans too, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So it makes sense. But how so like whenever I saw that, it always made me feel bad because it's like, I mean, these are like our coworkers working on the same team, sometimes same company, etc., right? So my guess was, I think they don't mean to be toxic or whatever how they're being understood, right? But in fact, I think what it is they're so passionate, they love StarCraft II so much, but they have no avenue to even help or even look into because everything was so guarded. Because why do we need to tell that guy what we're doing? Because we know best, so he doesn't need to know kind of mentality, right? Yeah. But what I started doing is because like internally, I don't even need any approvals. It's like I'm free to talk to anybody internally because like he's not supposed to talk to the public, etc. Right? So it's easy, right? So as I tried with very specific individuals, like just being like respectful, like completely honest, completely transparent about all the reasons behind why something is the way it is, and then listening to his like counterpoints. And then when he says something that was actually right and I was wrong, I would admit it, right? And then we would find the solution together, kind of thing, right? And then these guys would turn very like productive. So like I wouldn't say like they never said anything negative or anything like that going forward, but that's not what's important. Like the core goal here is, how can we utilize these passionate individuals to help make the game better? Not like, how can I be liked or like whatever, how can I feel good today or tomorrow, etc., right? So I felt like has to be the same core problem with the community too. They really, like, not every single person, but there must be so many people out there that just really want to see the game be better and better, but they have no avenue to do it. They don't even get to see or hear why, right? So what I tried for many years after that was every single week I did these weekly dev updates. And how those were written was very, I guess, simple, right? So I would just first take some time. It's easy because I'm always paying attention. I would just get the topics that are the most popular that week, right? And in that specific time frame, all negative topics, right? And so I would take those, and then for each of them, I would point out the specific things that I agree with, and the specific things that I disagree with. And for every point, I would give my reason on why I agree or why I disagree. And then how it would end is like I would offer up like, yeah, so please let me know if you think I'm wrong on anything, but be very specific on the reasons why, like what you're saying is better for the game and what I'm saying is not better for the game. And then after we repeated this for say like 3 years, I could totally see the clear like overall improvement from like StarCraft II dead game to like very mixed positivity versus negativity versus productive discussions. Like there was all kinds of kind of mixed, and mixed is the best we can do, I think, right? Yeah, so I was very, I guess, upset when I had this realization, but eventually I was kind of happy that like, oh, like it's in a much better place than it used to be kind of thing.
I think something cool you mentioned there
Yeah.
is the specific points. I feel like whenever people they have like a big emotion about something, specifically StarCraft II related, because I mean that's my main area of expertise. They tend to speak in very broad terms.
Yeah.
Protoss is broken, or even they're talking about, even if they're talking about a unit, it's like, oh, the warping mechanic needs to be gutted, and then it feels like the more you zoom in on the problem and the more kind of granular you get, the more understanding you get from their side. And also the more you can actually explain why things are the way they are. I always feel like that whenever you keep zooming in further and further with someone that has a problem, it tends to get solved significantly quicker. Otherwise, you just kind of keep throwing broad terms. Oh, TOS is broken, Zerg is broken, Terran is broken. Which I think is really cool that you mentioned that, because it's something that I've also personally noticed in my communication when, whether it's with my community or with the larger StarCraft community, I feel like the more broad you speak, the worse the conversation tends to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be even more specific than that, so for feedback and collaborating in this type of matter, I learned a lot. And my thought today is it's collaboration with the players especially can't happen unless you have a very clear set of goals that you're trying to achieve first. So like more broad level first, right? And we go as specific as we can, like you're saying, towards these goals on every discussion that we have, right? This is how you get the best, most effective feedback and most effective collaboration too, kind of thing, I think, is one of the things that I've learned over the years. Yeah.
A particular example there that struck me as the first time where this truly got implemented, this thinking, was with the Adept at the start of Legacy of the Void, where the Adept would two-shot both Marines pre-combat shield and SCVs. And I think it was the Danish player that played for Liquid at the time, Bunny, who came in with the suggestion to make it one less damage against light, I think it was. So rather than 23, make it 22, and pretty much solve that issue. And you guys just verbatim implemented that.
I see. Yeah, I don't remember that specific example, but we did try our absolute best to kind of whatever have this mindset of doesn't matter where the problem comes from. It's not about like if players are better or if the developer, like it's a collaboration, not a contest kind of thing, right? So whatever is the most logical thing that makes the most sense based upon the reasoning that we have at the time. Yeah, we just do what's best for the game, right? So like, well, I don't remember the specific example, but like it sounds like something that would have been smooth by the time Legacy of the Void hit, kind of thing. Yeah, right.
I have two more questions on Heart of the Swarm, and then I kind of want to move on Legacy of the Void a bit, and then what you've been doing afterwards. Specifically on the Warhound, and I kind of want to talk about how they did as a developer. Were you at that point you were the main dude in charge that was saying like, hey, I want the Warhound in the game, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you get your animators, you get the dudes drawing, voice lines, localization, or no?
Sorry, I was just in charge of the game design. So if you look at a specific unit like the Warhound or any other unit really, right? I would try my best to like come up with like not myself but like with a team. But once like I sign off on the design, then I pass it over to Art, and Art would be handling all of the visuals for it according to what the design is, right? So And I understand why you asked this question, because not every development team works like that. So it wasn't the case that I say like, oh, wouldn't it be so great if it looks like more like a SCV but much bigger and then this and that. Like I was not even involved in any of that. Like that was all art. But the specific mechanics and what units are going in from a design point of view, that's what I was in charge of.
Okay. Where I was going with this is more that you order the making of this unit, and then in beta testing, it turns out that everyone, pretty much across the board, hates this unit. And you have this very large process that you set in motion, where there's lots of people that worked on this unit already, and it's really not going to see any major playtime. What happens in that moment?
Yeah. So it goes into single player mode.
Okay, but I can imagine that a lot of people are quite upset. Like they put a lot of effort into this, and
So the long answer, I guess, is you're absolutely right? But as a development team as a whole, not just me, but everyone, including myself, we tried our absolute best to not be offended by things like that as best as we can, kind of thing, right? Because it's like, at the end of the day, if the game does better, then that's good for everybody, including the person that put in so much hard work in the Warhound, for example, right? So there's that. And then always the kind of the saving grace was like, hey, at least it's gonna go into single player mode, kind of thing, right? So that's why there's like so many single player units, not just in Legacy of the Void, but the previous ones too. But it's not like it's not supposed to, like, it kind of sounds like F you, like it's on the, like, but it's not coming from that point of view. It's just coming from like, we have to be able to do what's right for the game, and we all need to be able to understand that no matter how much it hurts, kind of. Like, I made plenty of maps or whatever, or designed plenty of maps that didn't make it or whatever. Same thing, right? Or I've suggested plenty of units. My ideas get shot down all the time, right? But the focus was more on, it's not about what you spend time on. It's more about like, together as a team, let's together put out the best product that we can put out. So let's try our absolute best not to be in those types of situations. Kind of, that's the high level. And then it's like, we have it, it's all final. It took a long time to make, so might as well just put it somewhere, and single player makes kind of sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but and how does it work with like more of the management structure? Because I imagine they are not going to be super stoked to have like 20 people put X amount of hours into this unit that is then going to be played in one Heart of the Swarm mission.
So of course I don't know how it is now, but at least back then that was like a non-issue. Like
really,
nobody would care. I don't think about something like that. It was very loose, and it was quite the opposite even, right? So for example, so most companies, especially today, when budgets are tighter, people would scrutinize things like that, right? But like, maybe let me give an extreme example of what I mean. So we did a lot of overtime in Wings of Liberty when we were trying to get the game out the door, kind of thing, right? And there were actually 2 periods where we had to do it, because we thought we were releasing at this point, but turns out like Battle.net wasn't ready or something like this. Some other outside team wasn't ready, so we had to push back. And then for this final stretch, we had to do like crazy overtime too, kind of thing, right? And both those times, the atmosphere was actually quite the opposite of what you're saying. It's more like, oh, these X number of people on the dev team has to work, whatever, 80 hours per week. So it's only fair if everybody else works 80 hours too. And then imagine how much that costs, that difference costs, right? So like, if quarter of the team has to do overtime for 80 hours, which is like double, and then you get into like 1.5x pay, like 2x pay, etc. per week, right? And then you're adding the remaining 3/4 of the team and paying those guys for overtime too, right? So this is massive amount of money, but it was more about doing what's right to the developers, doing what's right to the game, etc. So money was not really a big concern, kind of thing. So like, so if paying like 3/4 of the team that doesn't need to do overtime all that money, right? Like, how much of a less of a problem is, say, like one artist spending 3 months to do X? You see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's very cool. I guess it helps you have World of Warcraft raking in the cash in the background, though.
And StarCraft II was the very next game right after World of Warcraft success too, right? Yeah.
So, okay, so expectations are very high naturally as well because of that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. That does make a lot of sense. Next, my final question on Heart of the Swarm is the kind of the free unit thinking. So a lot of people in the Broodlord saw a unit that was spawning free units as kind of the main problem of the Broodlord, that there was no major downside to attacking. And then you decide to implement a swarm host. What was the thinking there? Where like, this is different enough that it's not going to have similar problems?
No, I think the biggest problem was I didn't realize the core issue that I spoke quite long about of the one meta and then stale, etc. So it wasn't like a big thing, right? And for free units, the reason why that wasn't seen as like a bit of a red flag is because there has to be a way to be able to do free units in a way that kind of thing, right? But the specifics of how it turned out was that it was the same result. So yeah, maybe in hindsight, if we had realized that lesson earlier, then that wouldn't have happened. So the Stormhorse situation, the endgame stalemate situation, would not have happened if we had that realization earlier than we did. Yeah.
In this moment, do you believe that free units are a problem, or do you think more the staleness of the endgame meta is a problem?
Oh, I absolutely don't think free units are a problem. So like, I'll give you a very specific example, right? So specifically in the game that we're making right now, right, at A-Move Games, all the core units, so like by core unit, I mean like the tier 1 fodder, so like zealots, like marines equivalents, zergling equivalents, etc. They're all free. So like, and then it's not causing us any problems just because they're free, kind of thing, right? So I guess I have a real example of like, it's not causing any of those stalemate moments, for example, even though they're all free for everybody, right? So I don't think free units are the problem, but the real problem is any unit that causes the behavior in a game like StarCraft II specifically, that nobody attacks until the final fight. Like, this is the core problem, I think, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I have a question for kind of moving into Legacy of the Void, because you now kind of identified that problem for yourself. Mm-hmm. Is there at any point a thought of maybe working towards map objectives in a Dota-esque manner?
Oh. Especially for Legacy of the Void, it wasn't. So like, at least from my point of view, and I was kind of handling the design of the new units, systems, etc. for PvP, right? Like, all I was really focused on is how can we as a team make new stuff or changes to the game such that even after everyone has left, because the dev support has ended, how can StarCraft II be as fun as it can be for the longest period of time, right? So like, for example, I don't remember any specifics, but if you look up the actual things that were changed, I could probably speak towards like one by one, like how either it did go towards that goal of creating more action points, or how we thought it would, kind of thing, right? And that was the main thing I was focused on, kind of thing. And then I knew, like, after the 1 year mark, the support is ended. So my kind of TLDR high level goal was more like, try all these changes for Legacy of the Void, and there's exactly 1 year left to be able to verify and make sure that nothing went wrong. And then hopefully it would be in a good enough state for like all of us the majority of us to leave the team, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Were there any things that you did for Legacy of the Void where it got into the game and you're like, I did a really sick job?
Oh, there must have been, right? But I think, I don't remember the specifics, but at a high level, I do remember being like completely shocked because Wings of Liberty release, there were so many problems. Heart of the Swarm had like similar problems even, plus I had that like biggest problem I've ever seen in like kind of thing. But Legacy of the Void went so smooth compared to those first two, in my opinion. Like, for example, there were no like standout major issues like the ones that we kind of discussed. Not only did, let's say, like even at the highest level of play, like if you look at top 4, top 6, top 8, top 16, top 32 like race balance, etc. Like even those things were actually going quite well compared to the like not perfect. Like it can never be perfect, but
Yeah.
you see what I mean, right? Like compared to the previous two, it was going super smooth. So that's partly why I had the extra time. That's why I kind of requested like, hey, can I work on this prototype on the side because I have this much time, so etc. Like so it's all kind
Life
of
is too good right now. I need more stress.
right?
Yeah.
But it was like really surprising in a good way for the first time ever, almost kind of thing, right? Which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we moved from 6 workers to 12 workers in Legacy of the Void. Do you recall doing any of the major testing of the different like worker sets that you did back then? And what kind of were your takeaways on that? And just like a quick pro con on 6 worker versus 12 worker, if you can.
Yeah. So that one's kind of a funny one because I've been going more and more down that path. So like my thought was kind of simple, right? It was like there is this part of the game in StarCraft II that plays identically same every single time. No like, sorry, I shouldn't say no because there are some exceptions to every case. So majority of the games, it could be cut out and it would not make a meaningful difference for the most part, kind of thought.
Yeah,
right?
you could show a picture to me at the 2-minute mark from a Heart of the Swarm game, and I would be capable of telling you what the opener was from both sides. Yeah.
So what's kind of really interesting for me to think about this question is the 12 workers was the branching point where any sort of meaningful change could happen. I think it must have been the reason why that was decided, because I do remember testing this different numbers too, kind of thing, right? But then I guess maybe quite interesting along these lines to talk about is like for Battle Aces that I worked on for 4 years almost, I don't know. I went even
4 years,
further
according to your LinkedIn.
even more of the most similar stages. And then in the current game that we're working on, I cut out even more than that for Battle Aces kind of thing, right? So like I've been going more and more along that line of,
So your thinking right now is the more you skip of the early game, the better it is.
Oh, so
because there's very little strategical, meaningful things. It's mechanically not very difficult.
It's the context of the game too, right? So like in StarCraft, those mechanical differences, slight build order differences, they do end up making a big difference, right? So I would never suggest like start off StarCraft 2 game with 3 expansions up already, or 2 expansions up already, or whatever, right? But it's pretty much what I'm doing here now, right? So like your main base, it gets double the amount of resources as your expansions, right? So it's the same thing pretty much as moment 0, you're starting with an natural expansion already, right? Another thought is like these mechanical, like extremely slight differences is not what we're going for in this new RTS game. It's more like the bigger level, strategic level of like outside of the game, I'm trying to counter the meta. Inside the game, I'm trying to build the right counters to what you're trying to do and trying to read your mind, like all these things, right? Because the focus is more so on these strategic things rather than like, oh, I built my factory before my barracks number 1, so it makes this type of minor which is very cool in a game like StarCraft 2, but it's not the type of game that we're trying to go for here. So that's why I could skip a lot more of the
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, let's just. Is there anything that you feel like I haven't asked about the StarCraft period that you feel like is important to share? Whereas I remember, for example, one thing that I remember very fondly is that I think it was in either 2014 or 2015. You went to a tournament, I think it was in Montreal, WCS Montreal, and we had this little backstage area with some computers.
Yeah.
And me and some other guys, we went out to eat. And when we went out to eat, you were sitting together with the French Zerg pro gamer Firecake, who had a notebook with him with balance complaint. And it was about 50 or 60 pages. We went out to eat, maybe had a couple of beers. We come back 2.5 hours later, and you're still sitting there with him going over over every balance. Like, did this ever happen to you in real life as well, where you're just like in the supermarket and some guy comes up to you and is like, hey man, you need to freaking nerf the Broodlord right now?
Oh no. That was one of the shames, I guess, right? Because StarCraft 2 never got to that kind of WoW level or like a low level type of, because like I'm pretty sure like if you were one of the main spokespeople for like WoW at its peak, that could have probably happened, kind of thing, right? But no, but that does make me kind of wonder if you might find this sort of question or line of thought interesting, which is you know how like if you are one of the spokespeople, especially working on game balance, you do get a lot of like attention, like hate, attention in general, etc. Right? And then from the outside, we all know, like we all saw like how that went, right? But maybe it might be interesting. Please stop me if it's not, right? Because we can just move on, I think, right? We don't need to waste time. But from the inside, like developers' point of view, it was quite opposite different compared to what I was kind of analyzing externally, right? And maybe I can talk about two things. I think the second one is more extreme. But anyway, the first one is, especially when I left, like right when I had left the StarCraft II team, I would get pinged so much internally from developers from other teams mostly, with comments or questions along the lines of this, right? It'd be like something like, I've never seen the players be sad when a developer doing your type of job leaves, kind of thing. Like, I can't believe how much respect you got from players. I can't believe how much positivity you got, etc. Because every single time this sort of thing happens on any other game that I've seen, what would happen is players are celebrating, like, oh, finally he's gone. Like,
Ding dong, the witch is dead. Yeah.
yeah. So I would always respond by first correcting them, because this is wrong. Like, I was not unanimously loved, like by no means, right? And then I would kind of go into like, I had this big realization, like the stuff that I said, kind of thing, right? And then they would kind of understand or whatever, right? And then the second story is like, I understand it completely now after having going through so much more experiences. But at the time, it was very mind-blowing. So I'm wondering, it might be mind-blowing to you too, and you might find it interesting. Is I talked to a lot of different companies when I was on Diablo 4, because I don't know, for whatever reason, so many people were reaching out to, not just me, but probably other designers too, regarding starting a new studio or starting a new game, etc. right? And when I talked to, so like it was like the first call where I'm kind of introducing myself, they're introducing themselves to me, like a Tencent execs or whatever, right? And it wasn't like a game pitch or anything. I'm trying to explain my design philosophies, like values, like etc. Like just trying to like tell them about how I do things or whatever, right? And then the whole meeting, the vibe was like, nobody really cares. And it's understandable from their point of view, like how many pitches or how many talks are you having with different individuals, whatever, right? So I wrapped it up as quickly as I can and then said my thank yous. And then I figured like, whatever, right? It's all good, right? I could see that happening. It's good, right? And then like a few days later, one of those guys reached out for a private, like one-on-one call, right? So I'm like shocked. I'm like, wait, why? Like there's like, it's not expected at all, right? So I jumped on the call, and then like before I can even say anything, he's like ranting on about like, I've never, like, why didn't you tell me that like you're so respected by the players? I've never seen all the players being so positive about like a developer that's in that position, like that never happened, like all this stuff, right? And then after like he was done with his rant, I did the same thing that I usually do. Of like, I corrected him saying it's not the case, but there is a bit of a difference. I do agree, and it's because of these. And then now it's like the polar opposite of the first call, right? Like he's like paying 200% attention. So like at the time, I was shocked because it's like, why does any of this stuff matter here, right? What should matter is my design capabilities, like my team leading capabilities, my project leading, like these should be the only topics that we should be talking, like why are we even talking about this one out of all things or whatever, right? And then after, I don't want to rant too much, I realize now why that was the case, and it shouldn't be a surprising thing. But all this to say, like, it's quite interesting, right? Like seeing it from the player's point of view versus seeing it from the developers is so different, right? So this was, I think, I guess, one of my kind of memories that I always find like, oh, like that gap is so weird to me, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Because the POVs can switch so much from which group you're talking to.
Yeah, right.
I actually kind of like going in that direction anyway. You were talking about talking with Tencent. How was that entire process? Because this is while you're still working post StarCraft II. I'm pretty sure you've got credit on like every game that Blizzard had. Did you do Overwatch as well? Something
no,
there?
I never worked on Hearthstone, never worked on Overwatch.
Okay.
I think that's like something to do with they wanted to be nice to everybody, so they put everybody on everything or something like.
Okay.
I wasn't involved. I don't know, but yeah, I only worked on the projects that I worked on. I didn't work on.
Okay, cool. So is it you did Heroes of the Storm? This was built on top of the StarCraft II engine, right?
Yeah. But it had to be tweaked quite a bit because the ping differences or something like this had to matter quite heavily, and there were some things that you just couldn't do in Heroes that they wanted to. Let me answer the question though, right? I don't want to get too into the sidetracking. For me, I worked on StarCraft II for around 9 years, I think. And during that time, there was a bit of a break when I didn't have a lot to do. Heroes of the Storm spun up, and they were having a lot of trouble finding senior designers to come. And then I think if I look at the time frame, it makes sense because like LoL or Dota 2 are the number 1 and number 2 MOBAs of all time. So it's kind of like, would you rather work on WoW at WoW's peak, or would you rather work on a new MMO? It's kind of that situation. So of course it's going to be kind of hard, right? But because I had a lot of free time, I offered to help work on it for a year and a half part-time. So that's what happened there. And then towards the end of StarCraft II, I mentioned I did the other thing part-time, the pitch prototype part-time too.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went to Diablo 4. And then the situation was, I was having a really hard time because there wasn't a very clear vision of what we're making. So it was very difficult because I was in charge of all of systems for Diablo 4.
What does that entail? All systems?
Oh, I see. So for like StarCraft II, it's like PvE versus PvP was kind of split, right? But generally speaking, I think most games at Blizzard, or I guess WoW and Diablo are the similar types. In those games, the split is more like systems design versus content design. So systems design is things like itemization, like progression, classes, etc. And then content is more like the story, the quest design, the world design, things like that.
The dungeons, I guess.
Yeah, dungeons that would live on the content. Yeah. So I was the lead systems designer handling the systems part and not the content part. Yeah. So it was really tough. So I was having a tough time, but because so many of these like people are reaching out, and I'm thinking like, oh, maybe I can do the next RTS then, right? So even though I was having a tough time, but I stuck it out partly because of that kind of hope, and also partly because I didn't want to leave a team, at least until it shipped kind of thing, right? But what ended up happening was I had this realization at some point that it's not going to happen. The next RTS outside of Blizzard is not going to happen, right? So what happened was I made this personal decision of I'm just going to stay at Blizzard forever until they change their minds and decide to do an RTS. Then I'll try my best to get on that team from wherever I am, right? And because I was having a difficult time on Diablo 4, I decided to move to WoW because, like I said, outside of RTS, WoW by far my favorite game of all time, kind of thing, right? And then like irony of life is like things don't go as you planned, right? And two major things hit at the exact same time, which is so crazy to me, but it kind of shows you like you can only plan for so much in life, and then like sometimes it just doesn't go that way at all, kind of thing, right? So the first thing obviously is the dream sounding, like everything sounded so amazing, and oftentimes when an opportunity or anything sounds too good to be true, then it often is, right? But even with knowing that, I had to take the opportunity because it just sounded too good, kind of thing, right? That's why.
And this was the Battle Aces opportunity.
Yeah. That's why I had to leave the WoW, which I felt so bad because I never wanted to leave any team that's the worst thing you can do to a development team after you join it, kind of thing, right? So I still feel so bad about it. I felt horrible at the time. It wasn't my intention or whatever, right? And then the other irony is like the lack of vision problem was fixed almost immediately after I left. kind of thing, like with a new person coming in, new person taking over, etc. So it's like, man, so it's like, I shouldn't have left in the first place, right? I should have just stuck it out, right? In hindsight is 2020. And two, if I had known, like I really shouldn't. So it's it's like a funny personal regret, but what could I have done type of situation here, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So you then get your opportunity. I think you're Tencent funded with Battle Aces, right?
Oh, so it was more like Tencent internal dev team, but some companies like having internal studios, and some other companies like Blizzard, they like having teams, right? So Blizzard had like team 1, 2, 3, 4. Tencent has studios per each of the,
Okay.
that was the setup, yeah.
Okay, cool. And this was also still based, is it around Irvine where?
We were fully work from home the whole time. So
Okay.
the main Tencent office is in Playa Vista, which is an hour and a half away from Irvine or something like this. Which we went to a few times, but we were just full work from home. Yeah.
Okay, fully work from home. And you had a team of 50-ish?
Yeah, 50 to 60. I don't remember the specific count, but something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned before that during your pitch, you had a very strong design philosophy, as well as, I guess, a very strong management philosophy. And that design philosophy is pretty much the kind of the deck building vibe that you've been talking about.
Oh, I see. So for team building, that was actually my worry. And I was the first to, like, even before joining or whatever, before signing or whatever, I told them straight up, I've never done it before, right? I've never led a whole project before either, etc. So anything and all things could probably go wrong, but I'll do my absolute best to react to those problems and then learn from those and then improve that way or whatever, right? And then for the game, I guess design values, I have very specific thoughts, but it does kind of adjust based on what I'm working on. But I think it sounds more like you're interested in the game vision.
The game vision.
Yeah. And that one was more like this. I had a general idea of what I wanted to do because, so like, if you look at it from my point of view, it's a little easier. So from my point of view, I'm coming off of having tried a prototype, and I've been thinking about for the past like 5 years or so afterwards, what was bad about it, what was good about it, how could I do some things different, etc. Right? So I wanted some time to think through all that and then get down to all the specifics kind of thing, right? But at a high level, what I wanted to do was what I've been saying, which is the real-time execution is like StarCraft II, moment-to-moment, army controls, etc. Like I can split up my army, I can do harassment, I can, like all this is core is like StarCraft, but add as much strategy as possible kind of thing was the high level, right? And then the reason why I wanted to go much more deeper, so I asked for, I just told them something, and then I asked if it's okay, of like, can I just work on the game vision for like some period of time? It ended up being like a month or something like this, maybe a little less.
And this is just by yourself?
Yeah, before the team gets hired kind of thing, right? So they didn't care or whatever. They don't care about the specifics or whatever, right? So they said, okay. So that's what I did. And during this time, I worked out the very specifics of like, this is the unit roster down to the starting stats. But once things go into the game, I would have to test it to know if it's correct or not. I explored maybe 10 or so map layouts because at the time we wanted to do one map, kind of like a Clash Royale or kind of like a MOBA or whatever, right? Decided on the map layout, etc. Like, so every system was kind of written out in kind of depth, right?
This is very granular already to start with, no?
Yeah, because what I wanted to try also was, you know how most games they make a prototype and then make the game, but I felt like I think that will be a bit of a waste of time because I do have something a lot more specific that I don't need to prove out something in a prototype to be able to know kind of thing, right? So we actually never prototyped anything. We just built the game from day one. And we're doing the same thing at A-Move Games too, kind of thing. Long story short, it was kind of a unique and different type of experience, but people really loved it, I think. So like, you know how the norm, I think, that I see everywhere is when a team or a game or a studio first gets started, everyone's excited. Like no one's unhappy, kind of thing. Everyone's happy, right? But when a game gets canceled, especially like out of the blue, like it kind of did here, like people start pointing fingers, they get upset, etc. But I think how much they loved being an average developer loved being at Uncapped is it was like the opposite of that. Like people were like reaching out to me, for example, like they don't have to, right? But saying things like, "Hey, don't worry about me. I just want to let you know, like this is the best team that I've been on," kind of thing, etc. And I think that all comes down to like if someone joins the team and they know exactly what they need to make, and then the iteration happens after that, I think that's such a better development experience compared to like, hey, don't worry, we'll figure it out as we go, right? So for now, like all your work could be, it kind of goes back to one of the things that you were getting at of like,
The
you made me
Warhound,
waste
yeah.
like 3 months or whatever. Like just why couldn't you have told me 3 months ago kind of thing, right? So
Yeah, but isn't the downside of that though is that you're very reliant on your initial vision, and how do you kind of balance that with inputs that you're getting during it? So you said that on a system level you had pretty much everything done. What if midway through testing or 4 months into development you're like, oh crap, this doesn't work as how it, because you didn't prototype at all. Wouldn't it be wise to just prototype it at least in the Galaxy editor?
Oh yeah, so that's a great call out, right? So and we did think of that too, right? So what we did was we tried to build every piece, and we relied on the discipline experts for that, right? Because like an artist knows best in art, etc. So what we tried to do was whenever possible, try to build it such that if this doesn't work out, then we can pivot this way or that way. So we did build it with certain sort of flexibility in mind. But in hindsight, I guess I give you a clear example of where we failed, right? In hindsight, multiple maps was where it's at, especially for a game like this. Because one of my takeaways from Battle Aces is I don't think it had the legs to go on a long time. Like it was too simple of a game for a PC-only RTS kind of thing, right? And one of the big kind of in hindsight we shouldn't have messed this up was we shouldn't have built up the map building pipeline such that we can't add new maps. Like it would have been so costly to add new maps to Battle Ace because of the quality, like etc. Right? So that would be a good example of where we completely made a big mistake because of this process, but we didn't have too many of those issues kind of thing and I think it's because at the end of the day, the experts that really know their space the most, just being able to do what they can do with enough freedom can prevent majority of these types of situations that you're talking about, at least in my experience.
Okay. I had a conversation with Tim Morton last week, and something that he said that I thought was very interesting was that, so his studio was VC funded. He believed that that model at its core was faulty due to not having a second game. He very strongly believed that the first game, he believes that now should be more limited in scope, and then your second game should be more of your magnum opus, so to say, where you iterate on the systems that you perhaps created in the first game. Do you view this similar, where you kind of now you ran Battle Aces at Uncapped, and now you've started A-Move games? Do you feel strongly about this too? And how capable are you of taking some of the systems that you made in Battle Aces and kind of move forward with those?
Oh, so I guess I can't speak to funding because I was at a company that internal team kind of thing, right? But I think the core of what he's getting at, if I'm understanding what you're relaying properly, I do agree with, right? So it's like whether you accept money from somebody else or whether you are making a game for somebody else at a different company that you have no say. So I always knew, right? Like this could be canceled anytime for any reason that I have zero control and zero say over, and it is what it is, right? But that's the downside. But the upside is I don't have to worry about money at all. I can hire whoever I want, kind of. So like there's pros and cons to everything, right? And I'm sure it's similar, but different pros, different cons for VC funding, right? But at the core of it, having control over your own fate, there is more value than I expected. But this also comes with clear and big cons too. So it's not what's better or worse type of situation. It's more like, what do you think is the best for you and what your team and what your team is specifically trying to do situation kind of thing, right? So I would never say like VC route is bad or joining a company. They're great in their own ways, probably most likely, but they have their kind of cons too. But everything has its cons. Like what we're doing right now, like self-funded, doing it all completely on our own. Like we have our clear cons too, right? But I guess I can say this as an example to show what I mean, right? So for A-move games, the reason why we're doing what we're doing, so like the TLDR gist is we have 4.5.
Sorry, I just want to quickly plant the flag for some of the audience might be confused. So you went from Blizzard to Uncapped, which was a studio within Tencent.
Yes.
And with those, you created Battle Aces.
Yes.
Battle Aces got cancelled in 2024 or 2025?
No, it's been almost 1 year. So 2025, like around this time. Yeah, summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you, end of 2025, you started A-Move Games, which is creating a kind of deck builder RTS. That's kind of the timeline that we have, right?
Yeah. And then we call it like a fast action RTS, but deck building isn't the core of it. The core is how can we make sure that strategizing is just as important as,
I'm not going to let you do this. Fast action RTS.
Oh, I see. That's why you're smiling. I was like, oh, what's so funny about what we're doing?
Yes. So the abbreviation of this is FART, which is how you wrote it to me in text as well. I was like, what the hell is FART?
It's like, I mean, there's like an inside funny story too. So like, when we were working on Heroes of the Storm, they wanted to, the team, because I was only helping part-time, the team wanted to come up with a brand new genre name for it, which I didn't agree. I don't agree with, because it's like, I mean, if you're making a MOBA, just call it a MOBA. That's the easiest and it's the most relevant, and you'll attract players way easier if you just call it what it is or whatever, right? But one of the like inside jokes within like bullpens or whatever, like, it's like a small scale thing, not an official Blizzard thing or anything like that, I don't think, was like, oh, what if we call it like fast action RTS, and then it's farce and it's funny or whatever, right? And then fast forward to when we're trying to call what this is, because clearly this is not a traditional RTS. Like if you play it, it's different. It's like a new type of, but at the core of it, it's still an RTS, right? So we were talking about what the best name could be, and it's like, I mean, fast action RTS kind of perfectly fits. Like this is a RTS focused on the fast action and the action or whatever, right? So that's why, and then that did come up, but the acronym is funny or whatever. But then it's like, but more important than if the acronym is funny or not is calling a game exactly, like you just hear the word and you know what the gameplay is. Like that's the most important. That's why it kind of, we called Battle Aces that, and then we're calling this one that too, kind of thing.
Yeah. So one of the things that I thought was really cool with Battle Aces, that there was a pretty hard time limit of 10 minutes. Is this something that you've kind of grown fond of that idea of like having a short time? This is actually something that Tim Morton told me last week as well.
Yeah.
He believed that the way to go is to have shorter matches and higher paced.
So that one I would disagree with. So I think the best time duration, and I'll give you a specific example that I tried recently to support what I'm saying. I think the best duration for a game is what amplifies the fun most. So like, for example, you remember StarCraft II games that lasted like 1.5 hours, for example, right? Those were some of the most boring to play, boring to watch, like worst possible. So clearly, that's not an ideal time for a game like StarCraft II, right? But something more like, I don't know, 15 to 30 minutes or so. I don't know what the ideal is specifically, but something more along those lines. So say that in this specific, in StarCraft II, we've identified that 15 to 30 is the mark where the game is the most fun. And then after, say, like the 40-minute mark, it's never fun after, that's the decision. Then I would say, if you cap it at the 40-minute mark, no big deal, right? Like maybe it's better for the game even to do that kind of thing, right? Or like any game, right? So, but I guess I can understand why he would say something like, so like, I do agree that not just gamers, but people in general, like my attention span has been getting shorter and shorter thanks to things like whatever YouTube videos or like over movies or movies over drama series, like in general. So I can see why he said that. So I do agree with that core, right? But for each game, there is an ideal duration, I think, that is very different. So like a MOBA that plays in less than 10 minutes, probably not the way to go. Like you won't have enough time to even grind, and that part is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for this type of game, my thought was just because we cut out so much of the early game of traditional RTS, and we focus so much on the mid game fun or whatever, and then allow room for the end game. So in StarCraft terms, it'd be like we cut out the first 10 minutes anyway or whatever, right? And we don't want to have those really dragged out moments either. So would 10 minutes work kind of thing, right? And then it did work pretty well for that specific game. So in ours right now, the cap is at 8 minutes, and it's because we cut out the first 2 minutes of something like a battle. Okay, yeah, so you see what I'm saying, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
When we're talking about just the battle aces period, one other thing that I thought was really cool, actually two things that I thought were really cool, was the game feel was insanely good. I think it's the RTS that has gotten the closest or potentially surpassed StarCraft 2 in game feel. Like the responsiveness of units, like you clicked and you knew what your units were gonna do. To me, that felt extremely good. As well as the readability was extraordinary. It was to me, it felt it was easy to see what was going on. How did you achieve those things specifically? And Battle Aces was built on Unity, correct?
Yeah, that was the main.
Yeah. Do you think there's like any major advantages in those two cases for Unity over Unreal?
Yeah. Oh, okay, so I guess answering the first one first is, I mean, it's not a mistake, right? It was like those two specific things, among other things, were kind of our main focus. And I guess it still is, right? So if we're making a PvP only RTS game, some like the things that you call out specific, those are kind of the most important things, right? So like the bar is kind of like, I guess, it was one of the major goals in like Diablo 3 or whatever, right? No matter what you're using to fight with, it feels great. And I'm including everything here, right? Readability, pathfinding, the VFX, animation, all that stuff, right? And the TLDR answer there is it just boils down to being able to have specific individuals that can execute these things to get to that combat feel kind of thing, right? And so in this specific case, I guess I can give an example. And it's the same on the art side too, right? But let me give a pathfinding example, but it's same across the board. Ramon, he came in as the first and main gameplay engineer on Battle Aces, and he's one of two engineers on A Move right now too, kind of thing. So TLDR is my expectation of how long it takes to do pathfinding on par with something like a StarCraft II in either Unity or Unreal was 1.5 years. And the reason why I have that number in my head even before I started was because I talked to enough engineers that I know, and that seemed to be kind of the average for one person to be executing it, right? And then he did it in like 6 months in Battle Aces from scratch. And then this time around, he did it in like 2 or 3 weeks from scratch. We don't own any of it. Like that's Tencent's property or whatever. We started with nothing carried over, like completely from scratch, right? And then so I've been talking to him over the years about like how is that possible or whatever, right? And then I think sometime last year he told me something like this that made a lot of sense, because like he would say all these technical things and I don't know, I don't understand any of that or whatever, right? And he's like, I think I have a way that I can explain it. And then I'm like, what is it, right? And then he's like, so you've been thinking of how to do game systems for a game like this for many, many years, right? And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, yeah, I've been doing the same for pathfinding. And that's how he's become such an expert at it. So it kind of boils down to you have to have individuals that can execute to that level, or else you'll never get there, or like maybe you'll get there in like a very unreasonable amount of time. But it's the same thing for the art, and then as a whole, like the readability, combat feel adds up, etc.
I think for the art, it is more clear to me how you find someone because it's more of a show and tell product. How do you go about finding like very highly talented individuals in these more technical aspects? Especially, I don't want to undersell you, but I think your technical knowledge is quite limited, right?
Yeah. It definitely is. But first, I would say like, well, I don't know. Finding the right artist is just as hard as finding anybody else.
Okay.
My experience building kind of a studio from ground up, if I were to take what was the most difficult, it would be like finding someone outside of my area of expertise. Like this is where I had the biggest problem by far, like difficulty by far kind of thing, right? And then once you have those people, you can kind of take some shortcuts and then continue work if they wish, which is also hard too from the fact that like most development teams don't go game to game together like this kind of thing, right? So there's that. And then and then just to answer your question directly is like, you have to rely on people that do know those things well enough. So like Skakel was our first engineer at Uncapped, and his expertise is server engineering, right? And he's also with us here at Aim of Games. And so the advantage for someone like him is not only is he amazing at server, but he knows enough about kind of other parts of engineering. And not everyone's like this, but he specifically is. And also he plays RTS games at a high enough level to be able to understand a little bit more than an average server engineer could for gameplay engineering kind of thing, right? So this is a super funny story, and I told Ramon this too, right? I was hard no against Ramon when we were doing interviews or whatever, right? And my reason was something like, I don't think he wants to even work on something like, he's so negative, he's so critical or whatever, right? So like, he's not gonna be good, no matter the skill or whatever. And the Skakel came to me and he's like, no, like, I can see why you think that, but my guess is he's just a brutally honest and direct person and we want that. And I'm like, oh, that's true, we do want that kind of thing, right? And he's like, we will never find a pathfinding engineer better than him, is how good he's gonna be or whatever, right? But it's not his direct area of expertise, but between his collective kind of experience total, he can kind of make that guess way better than I can. So like my answer is, I mean, if you're saying this, then of course I'm +1, hire him too kind of thing, right? And that's why we got him. And then imagine my surprise, like 6 months in, pathing already like on par with what I think is the ideal best.
Yeah.
Like 3 times less time than, yeah, right? So you see what I mean, right? So that is the only way. So imagine a scenario when we have to find the first person of a discipline where we don't have any expert, like how hard that would be. Yeah, right?
Yeah. How many kind of like pillars of discipline do you differentiate between? So you got your art, you got your pathfinder, you got your server engineer. Like what else do we, what does the game consist of?
Yeah, so it depends on the team and depends on the needs, but say like an average big size team, it would go a lot more specialized, like down to like, you would need a specialized engineer just for doing UI engineering only kind of thing, right? Same with art, like it's usually broken down into like 3D modeling, concept, VFX, animation, etc. But for example, on Battle Aces, we were able to take some shortcuts because Cuevas, who's the main and only artist working with us now, he handled some of the modeling, the 3D modeling, all of the animation and all of the VFX too kind of thing, right? So it depends on the person that you have. So for Aim of Games, where the goal is how can we strip down to the bare minimum team so that no matter what happens, we can keep going with the lessons learned, keep improving so that we can win one day, kind of more long-term kind of thought, right? Cuevas can handle all of art, so it's just one art kind of thing, right? But the reason why server versus gameplay, why we have 2 engineers for that is because especially for an RTS, gameplay is tough. Like you need to have some crazy like PhD level like math skills to be able to execute like pathfinding, for example, right? Among other things. So it's not something that like, or at least I'm not aware of someone who can do that. Plus the server side is like, it's pretty crazy too. Like what's so impressive to me is every pro player pretty much that played the game, when I ask about pathfinding or servers, and then or they offer the feedback to me unasked or whatever, they would say like, I've never played an RTS where I'm playing from Europe on the Asia server and there's no latency whatsoever, right? And I'm like, I don't know, but like we have a great server engineer about the gist. And then I asked Skakel and he says all this stuff. I don't really understand what you're saying, but I trust you that you know what you're doing or whatever, right? So this is what I mean, right? The expertise needed both on the server side for an RTS specifically and the gameplay side. That's why we have two engineers kind of thing, right? So it really depends on the need of the project and what you're trying to do.
How big is your team right now at A-Move Games?
Yeah, we have 4.5. So me on game design, Michael Cuevas on art, Michael Skakel on server, and Ramon Zarate on engineering. And the 0.5 because we have Walter helping out with the audio part-time. That is why, yeah, he's not a half a person, he's part-time is why the 0.5.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. And could you give me just like a quick like elevator pitch on where you're currently at? But like, what is the vision and how is the development timeline looking?
Oh, I see. Yeah. So we are. So maybe I should first talk about why we're so small too. So our thought was this, right? Our TS game is not a mainstream genre. It's the more niche side than mainstream, right? And within RTS, there's a reason why nobody is making a PvP only RTS like we are, right? Because the total addressable market size is bigger for the one-time playthrough campaign experience compared to PvP or whatever, right? So we could have just gone that same way that everyone else goes too, but our thought was, can we just set up a situation where it doesn't matter, like these other variables don't matter, and we can still continue to execute the PvP game that we want to make, kind of thing, right? And our answer to this was, if we keep the development team as small as possible, so we only have like whatever 4 mouths to feed when the game launches, it doesn't matter if the total market size is bigger for FPS games or single player RT, etc. And that's the way we started that way, right? And our vision is this. So one of my biggest takeaways from Battle Aces is I think it wasn't easy to learn enough. Like I was too afraid of like cleaning up all the tedious clicks needed to play an RTS, all the difficulties of, like I was afraid because I was worried that existing RTS players will be offended if I go too much, right? But the hindsight was that I was wrong. Like, especially RTS gamers, I feel like are smart enough these days to realize the pros and cons of what we're doing, no matter what we're like, no matter how crazy it might sound or whatever, right? So that shouldn't have been a worry. So we're trying to make an easier to learn game than even Battle Aces. But on the flip side, I touched on this before, but I don't think the depth of mastery was enough. Like it was too shallow of a game for a PvP RTS game. So we want to make a true easy to learn, but also true difficult to master type of game is kind of the element.
And then strategically difficult to master as well, right? Like like you kind of like being in between the mechanical and the
execution is difficult to master, but also strategy is equally as difficult to master kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, and I should also say, if anybody is interested in the specifics of any of this, then on our A-Move Games Discord channel, we do have this section called Dev Talks, where we do go into very specific points about very specific systems. But not only that, Cuevas always tries to put up art direction, like how the art is going, like how the game will look, etc. too. So yeah, any specific stuff that can be seen there. So I don't need to talk about the specifics here, kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Okay, sure. I'll leave a link in the description and I'll pin a comment as well. So if people are interested in that, then this is actually one of the reasons I want to do the interview, because someone sent me the link to the Discord and I went through some of the stuff and it looked interesting. I was like, all right, this is cool. I kind of want to talk about that. And when we're talking about because you say you're a very kind of lean machine right now, 4.5 people. What is how much does that stretch the development timeline?
Oh, so that's a funny thing. So to get to the point of the game that we are at right now, on Battle Aces, it took around 1.5 years, but we did it in like 6 months this time around with way less people, way less time, right? Both completely starting from scratch. And the reason why this is, in hindsight, is kind of the same as what I've kind of experienced personally. So like the more deep I go into my area of expertise, I find myself being like faster and faster and more efficient and more efficient. So like one, I guess, clear example is the first maps that I made in StarCraft II, for example, design, sorry. I would do the design, artist, pass it over to artists, they would art it up kind of thing, right? It would take like a really long time, like days or weeks or whatever. And this was the same for any other designer too, right? But by the end, it's like, I mean, once it takes me 20 minutes to come up with an idea, and then doing the layout 10 minutes. So like 30 minutes, I'm done kind of thing, right? So in aim of games, when we're like implementing the maps or whatever, I put in like 22 already, but in terms of time, it actually doesn't take that much time. It's more the idea of the next map that takes a much long, which is kind of funny because usually in development, the implementation is what takes long, and then the idea is quick or whatever, but it's the opposite for us. And then across every discipline, it's the same story pretty much, right? Like they've been getting so efficient at what they're doing, like way more so than before. That's why it's going so much faster. So I guess if you were to extrapolate, Battle Aces got to the public playable state in 3.5 years. So
6 months from now, I'll be playing your beta.
What was that?
In 6 months from now,
yeah,
if we extrapolate, I should be playing your beta or your alpha.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So to that question, I would say maybe, but not quite is my best guess right now, right? Because it's like maybe because it is going that fast, so it's not a bad guess, right? But where my kind of question is the last spurt of getting to that final playable is where it takes the most time because there's so many unknowns that come up that we weren't aware of before, right? And with only 4 people, I think that last spurt will take longer. So like if you guess like 1.5 years, I don't know, 1.25 years, then I would say like, yeah, that's a very strong maybe, I would say, right?
Could you give me 1 or 2 examples of things that came up in Battle Aces where like in the last spurt I was like, oh, I didn't think of this.
Oh, it wasn't like I didn't think of it, but like it's like issues that come up, right? So maybe the easiest one is we were intending to do a free-to-play type of model, etc., right? But we did a switch, and the reasons made sense to do a switch to the box. And that, I guess, switch, we couldn't have known while we were developing it because only after players have been playing and then they've been giving feedback, etc., that's when we realized we need to do this switch kind of. So it's like a brand new work that we have to do kind of thing after we've been spending, right? And maybe another good example is this. Certain systems were not up to par when we first started testing. So there were a lot of new, so like I guess AI is a good example. The bots, the quality in hindsight was not good when we first showed the public or whatever. So solving that issue took way longer than we had kind of planned for kind of thing, right? So like these kinds of things, yeah.
Okay, cool. So in 2027 somewhere, you know, if I'll send you a cheeky Discord direct message, I'll be invited into the playtest.
Oh yeah, so that's a good point because another problem, another con of doing this all by ourselves with this small team, etc., is like, I mean, we don't have the budget of like Blizzard or Tencent, etc., right? So if you like, we would be so happy if you try it out, right? And then even happier if you kind of like it, or if you like it enough to help us bring in more players, kind of thing. Like that would, that sort of thing. Not just you, but every player, every I guess streamer, everyone, right? If they like the game, if they can help out, that would be the biggest, I guess, positive that we could like get, because it's like we're just all doing it on our own, kind of thing, right? But yeah, I will definitely reach out when it's ready, kind of thing, right? Yeah, for the first
cool. I'm personally really looking forward to it. It's so for me, one of the main switches, kind of in thinking, has also been I truly believe that RTS, in order for them to keep the strategy portion, need new content kind of consistently.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily set like you are on like a deck building and a very strict map rotation, but I do believe that the kind of early 2000 mantra and what a lot of people are saying is what makes Brood War so great is that it never gets changed. I think this is kind of faulty for modern RTS due to how good people have gotten at min-maxing and how quick information sharing is between high-level players. So there's one example that I always kind of think back of Warcraft 3. You had Happy, who was kind of this legendary player that would only play in custom games. And because there was a very limited amount of tournaments back then, he'd have like very prepared build for each and every tournament. But because I feel like esports has gotten so big, and if you have a high-level game nowadays, this type of player wouldn't exist. Like this style of practice wouldn't exist in the current in the current landscape that you have in RTS. So I think there needs to be new content for that to be capable, and I don't really care how it gets introduced. And with that, I want to make one final pivot. First of all, I would like to, of course, call on my audience that if you're interested in RTS games, do definitely visit the Discord. But the final pivot is on the current PTR on StarCraft II. Have you been following this at all or no?
No. I haven't been tuned in, but let me say this though, right? It's unusual and it's rare for a game like StarCraft II that rarely changes and rarely has new things to talk about being talked about to this degree. Like you aren't the first, like so many people ask me my thoughts kind of thing, right? Especially on the worker change or something like this, right? But I mean, I have my specific detailed thoughts on all those things, but I think at a high level, I think it's a great thing that whoever is doing the maintain, I don't even know who is, right?
We call him the intern.
Oh, I see. It's, it's a little offensive. I don't know, right? But I wouldn't. But,
this is what. So the theory or the working theory is like we don't know how accurate this is, but the working theory is that there's a team of limited individuals that work on classic games, which StarCraft II is one of, and they rotate between Warcraft 3, StarCraft 2, maybe Heroes of the Storm as well, and then kind of do updates. So our last update was 8 months ago. Now it's our turn again, and then maybe he'll go back to Warcraft 3, which this person that we call him the intern. He's been doing God's work, honestly, implementing stuff, and we're not always happy with everything that happens, but I'm happy that there's someone to do the job. Sorry, continue with your story.
But my thought was very similar along the lines, right? For whoever it is or that is doing that, to create that much kind of hype, discussions, etc., I think that's a great thing for something like a StarCraft 2, right? And then if any change was whatever wrong, you could revert it, worst case scenario, right? Not the worst of deals or whatever, as long as it doesn't happen during a tournament, all results are all like messed up or something like this. So it was very cool for me to hear that people are excited, they're discussing more, etc., and just this kind of, I guess, level of passion that I can see as someone that's not even paying close attention is very cool to me, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I can. Okay, one final question, just to kind of go on this, is how much of an ego can you have when you're implementing this type of change? So, because this is a very big change, and you get a lot of people talking about it, and then if midway through you realize it's not working out the way I want it, how bad does it feel to kind of swallow that again?
So I might be biased because not only do I think ego-based approach is horrible for any game developer, but also I do have certain life values personally that I work towards, and humility, opposite of ego, is actually one of the kind of thing, right? So I might be biased, but my personal thought is ego will only get in the way and make even problems appear when there doesn't even need to be problems, etc., right? The right way to go is set that down and just focus on like making the game better kind of thing, right? So that's just my personal TLDR. And maybe a good example of what I mean is like one of the three, I guess, studio values at Uncapped Games was like reasoning over ego, which is speaking towards something. So I would, every single person that comes in, like during interviews, and then final reminder when they first come in of like, I would give examples of like, hey, it might sound kind of funny, but I seriously mean it, right? When I say something like, hey, do you know how many years I've been doing X, like game balance for? How dare you to challenge me? And then they would all laugh because they've all heard this sort of sentiment before from one development team or another kind of thing, right? We all have. But I would say like never, like nobody ever does this here kind of thing, right? It's the polar opposite of no matter how bad something sounds or even like offensive something sounds, you do what's right for the game. Like set that ego down kind of mentality, right? So because of this, I have very strong thoughts on this one. So I kind of like babbled on a little too much longer than I should have, but that's my thoughts on ego versus game development. Yeah.
Okay, then my truly final question, the third truly final one, is going to be, if there was one thing you could, before you left StarCraft II development, if there's one thing you could have implemented or one thing you would have changed, taken away or added, is there anything that's kind of top of mind where you're like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or no regrets?
I guess that's a tough question because I was like so surprised because I was expecting way bigger problems and I was so focused on making sure that it's good after I leave. So I wasn't in the mode of like, I want to do X, Y, Z and then like these are the new things that I want to do. Like it wasn't that. It was more like, I really hope like it's not all messed up or whatever right before I leave so that like there's no resources to be able to fix these major kind of thing. But I guess one thing is I feel like the automated tournaments feature was not good. So like at the TLDR there we had better design plans, etc. for it, but we kind of ran out of time. And I think introducing such a like I don't want to call it half-ass, but like just doing something minimum just because we're out of time, I think it was a mistake. Like maybe it was better just to design something like way simpler to begin with, or something that a feature that is very simple but hits on that fantasy maybe. But the way it was done, I don't know if it's been improved or anything like that now, but I guess that is a regret that I do have of like, we clearly knew it was not enough, but we shipped it anyway kind of thing, right? But in hindsight, for those things, maybe it's better not to even kind of thing, right? But maybe not a major problem because whatever. At least when I was there, most people like ignored it, and it's fine, right? It's just there, ignored. Not the worst problem ever, right? Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I think these were all my truly final questions.
Oh,
I
cool.
think,
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate all your time. With the pace that you guys are working, this probably, they cost significantly. If you compare it to Battle Ace development time, this interview was the equivalent of 5 days. So.
Oh, if anything, others are way busier than me because my job is more like setting what we're gonna make, double checking the features that go in, and then like my part comes more towards the end. Like I get super busy like towards the during the play, etc. So if anything, thank you for your time, and thanks in advance for any sort of help if you can, if you like the game, etc. I'm not forcing anything, but like
no.
I don't have anything to offer, but
I will not be strong-armed into endorsing something I don't believe in, but I'll give it a fair shot, and if I like it, I'll be sure. I love the RTS genre, and I'm fully ready to embrace the farce. So that's going to be no problem for me.
But I do feel like someone like you who also loves Hearthstone Battlegrounds and stuff like that will at least find it intriguing, even if you don't love it or whatever, right? So I do think it should be worth trying out at the very least. Yeah.
I mean, I for sure will try that. All right. Once again, thank you for your time. I loved all the little stories, the background stuff. And it's really funny. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was so difficult to reach you. It was you were probably the hardest man in StarCraft II to get a message to. And now I just sent you a Discord message, and within 10 minutes I got one back. I felt pretty good about myself.
So I guess two things, right? First is we were all sitting on our high horses or whatever it was back then, right? So that was the big one. But then for here, it's like I never used Discord, so like people would tell me like. Hey, like, why are you still messaging me on Facebook? Nobody uses Facebook anymore. Like, everyone uses Discord or whatever, right? And then I only got into Discord at Uncapped, and then I made my own whatever. I logged into my own account that I had, but I never used when I started doing the aim of games kind of thing, right? So it's two reasons like that.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time once again,
so
and it's been great talking with you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right.